What if honest spirituality in the year 2025 doesn't mean turning away from this wild and holy planet, but rather listening to it more deeply? What if the sacred is already speaking in the land beneath our feet, waiting for us to listen and to pay attention? Hey y'all, welcome. My name is Nate, and this channel is about listening for the sacred without the BS. In our stories, in the stars, in the land, and in our lives as they unfold every day, here and now. This is probably not surprising to anyone, but 2025 is a really weird time to be a human being, and in seasons of transition and disruption like this, it's very easy to feel unmoored, fragmented, disillusioned, and disconnected from things that give us depth and meaning in our lives. The noise of our culture drowns out the deeper currents of wisdom that really need silence and stillness and space to be heard. Exploitative economic practices wreck our common household and rob matter of meaning. Rampant spiritual bypassing turns our eyes towards the heavens and away from the real hunger and the real heartbreak that's all around us among our human family and our more than human family. And religion, at least in the way that many of us have inherited it, so often just leaves us with outdated answers to questions that nobody is asking. So how do we reawaken to a world that is alive, sacred, and full of meaning? How do we hold on to our human spirit amid the violence that inhumane systems inflict on us and on our planet day in and day out? How do we make it through this life without being a jerk? How do we keep our hearts open and tender and available to the real lives that are all around us? I don't have any illusions of having figured that out. I'll be honest with you. But I found things that help. I found things that help me keep my ear to the ground and my heart open to my neighbor. So I come as a fellow traveler, not as an expert. I'm a human being, trying to live in right relationship with spirit, with the land, and with my neighbors, human and more than human alike. So this channel is not going to be about me giving neat answers to life's mysteries. Instead, I am inviting us to a collaborative practice of listening together, of courageously holding questions, of wrestling with stories, of confronting our shadows, and of wondering at the mystery that holds us all. In moments like this one, across traditions, throughout time and space on this good earth, our human family has always turned towards story and ritual and embodied practice to help us remember who we are and to help us find our way back into right relationship with one another, with the earth, and with the more than human world around us. On this journey of trying to figure out how to hold on to my humanity, I found 4 different streams that have been especially helpful. You could think of these as 4 directions on a compass, 4 different elements, 4 different ways of listening to how the sacred is speaking right here and right now all around us. First, we begin in the East, where the gift of air carries wisdom to us through sacred utterance, through sacred text, scripture, and myth. I come from the Christian tradition, and I'm not going to lie that that's a 4-letter word to many of us. But that tradition, that inheritance, continues to be my spirit's center of gravity. And for me, the stories that I learned in my upbringing are so much more than these static artifacts that we analyze or historical narratives that we have to believe are literally true. Neither are any of these stories simply just proof texts for abstract doctrines that you have to believe in order to be the right kind of person. That's a whole lot of BS. These stories have been violated for the sake of control and conformity for way too long. But there's something real and good and true and beautiful in these stories still. And the mystical tradition teaches that when we encounter sacred stories, we are meant to read them with reverence and honesty, with curiosity and with skepticism. We are meant to challenge them, to dialogue with them, to crack them open, and to drink deep from them, because they are living and breathing companions for our journey. But one of the ways I practice this is through something called Lectio Divina, which is the ancient Christian practice of sacred reading. Instead of reading a text for information, Lectio Divina invites us to read for transformation, as a living encounter with the story, with the text. We're going to learn how to do that together. That's going to be one of our starting places for this channel. Whether we're chanting ancient verses of poetry, or whether we are breaking our head on one of Jesus's wisdom sayings or on a Zen koan, or whether we're drinking deep from the sacred texts and myths and stories of other world traditions, these sacred utterances can breathe new life into us if we approach with the ear of our heart open. From there, we're going to turn towards the south, towards the element of fire. Fire illumines, it purifies, and it transforms. Fire is the place of those inspired practices that ignite us and crack open the perceptive faculties of our heart so that the way we see the world can actually change to make room for the holy that is all around us. Along this stream, I will share ways that we can cultivate what one of my teachers, the Reverend Dr. Cynthia Bourgeau, calls luminous seeing. It's a way of perceiving the world not just with our ordinary faculties, and not only with our intellectual reasoning alone, but rather with our whole system of embodied knowing, online and active. Our thinking center, our feeling and aesthetic center, and our moving and kinesthetic center. This is contemplative practice, but contemplation is not about escaping the world. It's about burning through the illusions that keep us from seeing the world as it is, including the sacredness that's all around us. This stream is about practice, pure and simple. Through practices like prayer and ritual, chant, silence, inner sensation, and contemplative visioning, we can learn to recognize the current of divine presence coursing through all things. Then we're going to turn to the west, towards water. Water connects and cleanses and nourishes, and carries our grief and our joy and our utterances. And the West is where human stories and currents of soul flow through culture and through relationships and through our everyday stuff. Sacredness doesn't just speak through scripture or religious patterns. It also finds its voice in relationships. It finds its voice in art and culture and in other places where our collective imagination wrestles with what it means to be human, what it means to be conscious here and now. Here in the West, we'll be exploring the ways that the sacred shows up in film and video games, in the stories we tell each other through art and media. When we read stories with our imaginal faculties opened up, in the same way that we might practice Lectio Divina, we discover that the divine is not contained to stained glass and sacred texts and worn-out religious patterns. The divine is woven into the fabric of our human longing, showing up in unexpected places and inviting us to pay attention. This third stream of water is about recovering the sacred in the stories that we already know and love, and seeing how these stories point us back to those deeper well springs of truth that can teach us more and more about who we are and why we're here. Finally, we turn north into the element of earth, the place of grounding, roots, return, and our ancestors. Earth contains us and undergirds us and gives us a lasting shape and form as the physical body of this planet holds our collective human spirit. This is the stream of ancestral wisdom, of earth-honoring practice, of decolonial imagination. Here we ask, what is our foundation as a human collective? What does it mean to live in right relationship with the land we inhabit on which our lives unfold, with the ancestors who have gone before us, and with the more than human kin with whom we share this planet? For me, this work means examining the stories I've inherited, stories from my family, stories from my tradition, from my culture, the stories that live in my blood and bone, the stories I've inherited from my dead, and asking which of these stories bring life and which of these stories need healing or release or other transformation. It also means learning to listen to the land itself. The earth is not just a static backdrop to our human drama. It is a main character, if not the main character. The earth is alive and is intelligent and is speaking. And so to walk rightly on this earth is to walk in the rhythms of humility, sincerity, reciprocity, and reverence. This fourth stream is about rooting our spirituality and rooting our stories in place, in context, in history, because without that grounding, we forget what it means to be fully human, fully of the humus. These four streams of story, of practice, of connection, and of grounding, of air, fire, water, and earth, are not separate. There are four directions of one compass, four different ways of listening to the voice of the sacred. Together, these four ways form a rhythm, a balance, a loom on which we can weave the threads of our lives into one garment of soulful presence. This whole channel is going to be woven in this ritual pattern. Each week, we'll turn to one of these directions, listening for the sacred in story, in practice, in our human relationships, and in the land. And over time, I hope it becomes not just a cycle of content for the algorithm to enjoy, but rather a rhythm of life. You know, I said this before, but I think it's worth saying again. I'm not trying to come at this as an expert. I'm coming to this as a fellow human being who has spent the better part of the last 15 years trying to figure out how to wake up, how to be present, how to walk kindly and humbly and mercifully alongside my human family and alongside my more than human family. Which means that there are going to be moments in this channel where I wrestle, where I don't have it figured out, where I'm simply holding a question and sinking more deeply into it. Honest spirituality is not about certainty. It's about attentiveness, humility, presence, and courage. Living the questions is part of the practice. So that's what you can expect here. Maybe you are on a deconstruction and reconstruction journey from growing up in evangelicalism or some other kooky, funky religion that left you aching by the time that you left it. Maybe you are longing to ignite your capacity to see reality more clearly. Maybe you are longing to live with some kind of soulful depth as you remember your place in the ecology of matter and spirit. Or maybe you just want to live a life of ordinary mysticism. If that's you, welcome. That's what we're up to here. And I hope this channel can be food for your journey. Because I'm not trying to build a channel or a brand here. I'm trying to build a community, a container. And most of all, I'd love for you to bring your listening, your own stories, your own practices and experiences into this space as we weave the container together. Because the sacred is not something I can package and hand to you. It's something we discover together in community, in conversation, and in the magic that happens when we show up to the mystery of one another with sincerity and curiosity. If this speaks to you, I invite you to subscribe, hit the bell, smash that like button, do all the YouTube-y things, and join the conversation in the comments and share these videos with others who might find them nourishing. So, thank you for being here from the jump. Let's begin.